Hello everyone, my name is Chelsea Utek, expat and speculative fiction writer. Today begins week 4 of PrepTober. I planned to focus on characters this week, which is actually perfect because I was really hitting a wall when it comes to my characters. I know my main character quite well, but I really need to dive a little bit more deeply into my other characters and have a more clear image of them. So, I'm going to do that, and I'll take you along with me, and hopefully this process works for you like it works for me. What we're going to do first is some people watching. I'm going to take notes in a double entry style. So I have headed my paper with character exploration and folded it in half to create that line there. And on one side will be descriptions, and on another side will be assumptions. So I don't want to look like a creeper, so I will take my walking buddy. Saffron! Okay, I'm going to take my walking friend with me, and we'll go do some people watching and take some notes. And then we'll talk about what to do with those notes. But just go into this cold and yeah, write down what are they wearing, what do they look like, and if you don't have assumptions off the top of your head, that's fine. You can save it for later. Just leave yourself a little bit of space. I'll give you an example here. You can just write about Saffron having a fuzzy face, and then before you write your next piece, leave some space in case your assumption is longer. So if you don't have an assumption straight off the bat, do it like that. But also just write what comes to you first. I think we like to pretend we don't make assumptions about people. And in making these assumptions, we're not saying that these assumptions are correct or representative of these people. But we all make assumptions. So when you'll be writing from your character's point of view, if this is a limited perspective, they have biases as well. So just lean into them right now, and I'll show you what we'll do with them a little bit later. So back from the walk, it was a lot more effective than even I thought it was going to be. I thought I might get a couple of different descriptions and have to sit with them for a little bit, but I swear one of my characters walked right by me on the street. So it was really nice. I hope it's something that works for you. So the next step that we're going to do is to look at these assumptions a little bit more. Excuse me as I'm taking in my notes. All these bits that I wrote down while walking down the street. I do have some blank spaces where I'm like, I don't really know what that makes me think or feel or assume about them. So I'm just gonna leave them blank for now, and maybe something will come to me later, or maybe that just means that there's really nothing to that description. If no interesting assumptions came out of it, then maybe it's just not a very good description. Found it interesting as I was walking down the street, but not really that effective in hindsight. So what I'm going to do next is ignore the descriptions for a second. I'm going to fold those away, cover them with something. If you have more self-control than me, you could just simply not read them. I have no self-control whatsoever, so I'm going to cover them up. And I'm going to go through the assumptions, and I'm going to highlight or underline the interesting assumptions, or the assumptions that I might use. What do I want the readers to think, feel, understand about my characters? Then using that, I will go back and I'll look at the descriptions once more. So if I'm having the correct assumptions that I want a reader to have about my characters, that's the description that I want to use. There's a lot to be said about characterization, but I have a couple of things that I'm really trying to focus on in my own writing, and a couple of rules for myself. It's what I like in my writing, and it's also what I like to read. So I have a few of those that I'm going to recommend to you as you're looking at your own list of descriptions and assumptions. The first one is that less is more in character description. I love when I can clearly envision a character in my mind, but we're smart. Readers are smart. If you don't give them every single piece of information, readers will fill in things for themselves. So what I like to focus on is just a couple of key features. Think about when you meet someone and you have a brief conversation with them. If you were to be quizzed about what they looked like afterwards, you could give the basics and then maybe anything interesting that stands out. A scar, a birthmark, a crooked tooth, something like this is going to stand out. So that's really all that's important. Anything that is going to be reincorporated, anything that is going to make them distinct from the other characters, and anything that is noteworthy and supports those assumptions that you want your readers to make about your characters. Along the same vein, I want to talk about clothing description. Clothing description is a great tool, but it is a tool best used sparingly. The other thing that you could do is to use it in comparison to either what they were wearing on another time or compared to what people are wearing around them. Are they wearing something quite different than the norm, or at least the norm within their group? Or are you trying to juxtapose these two characters by having them also dress differently? Alright, so I spent some time talking about things I didn't like. Now the things that I'm going to want to focus on, and I suggest you focus on, is more dynamic descriptions, such as what is the character doing? I definitely noticed this when people were walking down the street and I was trying to take note of them, that they all had their own way of walking, and I really liked to try to focus on that. First of all, how will I describe this particular way that they walked or they looked at me? And then what does that make me think about them? Just the way that someone looked up at me as they passed and then like looked back down quickly, I was like, that is perfect for X character. Just this quick interaction gave me a strong feeling about their personality and their confidence level. So giving them something to do, like, do they have a nervous tick? Do they move their hands way too much like I do? That's why I like to film without my hands. They're moving a lot more than you even know down here. And the last one is to focus on dialogue and the way they speak. Are there certain phrases or words? When we analyze literature, we spend a long time focusing on the diction. So what does each individual character's diction say about them? And so more than having long lists of descriptions, I like to have notes about the way that the characters speak. All right, oops, just lost my light. It's bright enough outside. I'm wrapping up anyway. Okay, well, I have really good notes. I'm going to go work on my characters. I hope that you guys are going to do the same thing, and I will see you here next week when we are talking about plot. Have fun with the character descriptions, and until then, happy writing.